Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor v World. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here for another pre-season podcast on the Australian Survivor World Tour, where we are diving deep into every single player on AUV World, 7 players from Australia, 7 players from the rest of the world. And today we have a very impressive woman both with me, but also to talk about. We're going to be talking about Janine Allis, and I have the great Aimee Chan here. Aimee, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know. Well, you're like the big researcher, right? Like usually you come in preseason with a lot of research, and I said we'll do a podcast on Janine, and you've outdone yourself. You read Janine's entire book, Aimee.
Yes, I did. The whole book. Look, I've got Post-it notes.
I feel like
I've
we
got
should
quotes
expense
I'm going
that
to
to
read.
RHAP. You've got what?
I've got quotes I'm going to read to you.
Quotes, amazing, and Post-it, amazing. I love you've like dog-eared the book. Thank you for buying and reading Janine's entire book. I love that.
No problem. That's why you pay me the mega bucks.
Yes. Thank you for okay. I was feeling good about myself because I watched all of Survivor Quebec, 67 episodes. I feel like that was a lot of research, but then you had to come and out-research me immediately.
Well, I really like reading, so that's fine. It was well written enough that it was actually quite an easy read. So it was not as enjoyable as the time I had to watch Step Up 2, but not bad.
Memories. Well, for the people wondering, why does Janine even have a book? For the people who've never met Janine, maybe some of our US viewers who haven't watched Australian Survivor or haven't seen Janine's one season that she did in 2019, Janine's an impressive person. Like, Janine is so much more than Survivor. I genuinely, I'm amazed we got Janine one time for a, 50-day or whatever season of the show. And I never thought she'd come back because I thought we were so lucky to have her once. If she was going to come back, it is for this, shortened season. I think that, you can take her away from her incredibly impressive life long enough to do that. But yeah, the fact that Janine has been now a 2-time contestant on Survivor, Janine's been on TV a lot, but only on Survivor, I think, as a player or as a contestant. She's usually an advisor, a judge, like Shark Tank, a shark. And that's, I guess, how much she loves Survivor, that she'll do the show, that she did a deep dive with me once upon a time. She's tapped into, I guess, loving the show that honestly she's kind of above. And I think that is so incredibly cool of Janine.
Oh, well, I think it really speaks to who Janine is as a person. And for people who don't live in Australia, you might not understand that Janine is, even if you've never watched Survivor, even if you've never watched Shark Tank, even if you never watched Celebrity Apprentice, she is a real icon for feminism, strong female entrepreneur, business owner. The woman who can have it all. She is the one at the top of the pedestal that they're constantly promoting and getting the rest of us to look at and feel less than, because she's just so amazing. She does everything and is successful at everything she does. And so I feel like part of what she really loves about Survivor is actually the challenge of it, is that it just seems so unlikely that someone who is so successful, who's so corporate, who doesn't need to prove anything to anybody, would put herself in that situation to play the game. And then now at the ripe age of 60 years old, would be invited to come back and would do it all over again. That to me just speaks of everything Janine Allis is about, which is you offer her a challenge and you say, you can't do this. And she's like, F you, I totally can. And let me show you how I can dominate this whole thing.
Yeah, because there's no reason for Janine to do Survivor, let alone twice, other than a pure love of the game. She doesn't need it for the platform. She certainly doesn't need it for the money. And if anything, especially the first time again, which was an incredibly long season, she's leaving behind many empires, let alone her family and stuff. But she is, for the people who don't know, she's the head of Boost Juice, which last time when she played, people didn't, in the, internationally, it isn't, I think, 13 countries, but I think maybe it's not in America. Some people didn't know what Boost Juice was, and I was like, you're missing out. And then whenever Janine's on Survivor, I find that I'm buying more Boost Juice. It's great marketing, at least, with Boost Juice, but she doesn't need to do it for that. But at least it's, for me, she's getting more sales from me. So, and not that I don't buy it otherwise, but I'm really damn, I feel like a Boost Juice. So it's good marketing for just to me. But yeah, and she has and I was looking her up today, not nearly as much as you have, but I'm she has a company that's a parent company of tons of other things, like Betty's Burgers, which is a burger chain. We have a whole bunch of different things. And she leaves all of that behind to play Survivor now twice. I feel like she just must love the show. And also, I feel like it speaks to, and you can talk about this from the book, but her story isn't she just was kind of born with a silver spoon and now has this empire. I think her story is very much she worked all these odd jobs. I think Wikipedia said she was a stewardess on David Bowie's boat. His boat Twee? No. But yeah, and she had like all these odd jobs around the world, and I feel like that speaks to someone who would want to go on Survivor and actually, as you said, like challenge herself and isn't someone who's just had it easy. Like she's really built the success, and I think that speaks to who Janine is, honestly, in and out of the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, her early life in the autobiography, she talks a lot about how she's very proud of the fact that she didn't go to university. She didn't come from a strong education. She did go to, I think, TAFE is what we call it now, and she essentially went backpacking around the world. Went off, worked on this yacht that then was hired by people like David Bowie. Became a single mum over there. Tried to make it work with the baby daddy, didn't quite work. So she flew the baby over to Australia by herself as a single mum and started all again. Met her current husband, had kids with him. She's now a grandmother. And the whole Boost Juice story is, again, it's just something that sort of just came almost out of nowhere. She started doing PR stuff for her husband, who was working for Triple M, which is one of the major commercial radio stations in Australia. So she started off just doing PR for him, not because she had any qualifications or actually any swag in that area, but because he believed in her. She proved herself. Based on that, she then sort of went into a partnership with a different business partner to start a juice bar. It became pretty clear that that partnership wasn't going to work as a business, but the juice bar was. And so from there, she then taught herself how to build up a juice empire, which is now global. And I'm sorry, even if you're American, as long as you've left the country, surely you've seen Boost Juice. Because I myself was drinking Boost Juice in Singapore Changi Airport just in January. So it is in international airports. It's in other countries. She is a major global business woman. But she gets all of this really from the ground up. It's always about being self-taught. She's a self-confessed micromanager. In the autobiography, she talks a lot about how she really likes to control all elements of her business. And so then part of what she does is to then pass that on to the next generation. So she's very passionate about doing things like Shark Tank, where she is taking new young business owners and sort of helping to mentor them and teach them the process of how they can learn how to build their own business as well. So I feel like all these things of learning skills from the ground up, trying to strip yourself back, walk into a situation that's brand new and have to start all over again is something that is very appealing to her. And so I can see why, in a way, Survivor, something that is just so foreign to what she's doing in her day-to-day life, would seem a very exciting personal challenge, as well as the challenge of having to negotiate all those different relationships, which is something she's so successful at in her business, and obviously building her brand and her marketing, that I guess trying to put that to the test with a bunch of strangers on an island who are all starving to death is, another twist in her story.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Janine is it's because of this story that she connects so well with people. Like I remember her connecting really well with Luke and it being like, well, you'd think they would have nothing in common, but as you're saying, she's had this whole trajectory through life. It's not like she can just connect with the other CEOs that might be on the season, so or not. So I think that it's that versatile life experience that has allowed her to create so many great relationships. Yes, she was on the Champions Tribe, to be fair, so you would think there's maybe more of those type of people who have been really successful in a field, but she did connect with a lot of people who weren't Harry, mostly on the show. So yeah, I think that speaks to that. I mean, obviously in terms of the success she's had just on TV, I mean, she's as you said, obviously she's an author because you read the book, keynote speaker, she has a podcast, she's a business coach, she's used all of this experience to clearly be a leader in the whole business field. But from TV, she was on 2 seasons of The Apprentice, I think, as an advisor, one of which had David, where they had this rivalry, despite the fact that she was not a player on the show. So that will be interesting to watch that play out. I looked at you can speak to more of this than me. She was a shark on Shark Tank. And then she had some show with Gordon Ramsay that was seemingly to me, from what I could find, like The Apprentice and Shark Tank, but about food. Did you hear about this Gordon Ramsay show?
No, I didn't hear about that. You tell me about it.
That's how irrelevant it was to her. That's not in the book. No, I think this was only last year. I think that it was some sort of business pitching and competition, but about food. And she and Gordon Ramsay were the 2 judges. And that seemingly, so all of her TV experience, she usually comes in as she could be the new JLP. She's the host, no one can be. But on Survivor, she, plays the game with everyone. And I think that just shows how much she loves the show. What is your go-to Boost order?
Oh, Mango Tango every time.
Very
I actually
good.
almost never order anything else because I love Mango Tango.
I do love a
What
good
about
mango
you?
tango. Well, now I feel like I go lychee crush like every time.
See,
But
I
I do
don't
remember
like
how much
lychee.
oh no, I love lychee. So I'm like, I'm all in. I also say lychee in my South African way usually, but I did lychee for this Australian podcast.
Yes,
But
please. Thank you. You've got an Asian on the podcast. We do not say lychee.
it's a big point of contention in my marriage. So for you and for Peter, I will say lychee here and now and only here and now. But so okay, so give me the major takeaways from the books. Read the quotes. Tell me what are the post-it notes that you have here in a book that I do think I
Yes.
should be paying you back for. Send me a receipt, maybe. I'll just transfer you.
It's all right. It's all right. It wasn't expensive. I think it's out of print. I did have to order it from like a
Oh,
secondhand version from eBay
oh,
somewhere. So,
oh.
so that's probably also why
Wow.
Gordon Ramsay isn't in it. The first thing
Genuinely,
that I
like
thought was really
there's going above and beyond, and then there's ordering an out of print book secondhand. Just 10 out of 10, Aimee. No notes.
well, you know, I love you. I love Survivor. I love RHAP, so I don't mind doing it. The first thing I thought was really interesting is, I don't know if you guys can see that. This is like one of the first pictures that's in the book, and it is the three, in case you can't tell, Janine with the Golden God and with Luke Toki. And that to me is like a little premonition of what I think is going to happen, of what we saw the last time she played Champions versus Contenders 2, and then what we're going to see moving forward. I think that is a really, really interesting thing to think about. What you were saying earlier about her ability to connect with people and how personable she is, what really struck me when I watched that season again was that she is very quiet actually for the first half. Pre-swap, she's almost like a non-existent character. We see her doing little soundbite confessionals only because she's clearly one of the bigger known celebrities. So they want her face on the TV because everyone knows who she is. But in terms of gameplay, she's not really sort of anybody that they are focusing on at all. It's very much all about the Sporty Seven versus David and Luke. And she's sort of sitting down the bottom there very quietly. Once we get to the swap, there's a real shift. And by the time we get to the merge and we see this issue of the Godmother versus Dirty Harry, I think that's a really interesting dynamic, because I think this is where we start to see tall poppy syndrome come in. Now, I have heard tall poppy syndrome talked about on RHAP before, but for the non-Australians, we don't like people that are super successful. So on the one hand, it's a very delicate line to draw between, we want to put Janine on a pedestal. We think she's amazing. We all aspire to be like her. But if you become too successful, we don't like you anymore. And so part of what I think is going to be interesting with her is that she's just so high profile that I think this is why you saw that kind of butting of heads between her and Dirty Harry in the second half of that season, because she was a great big shield for everyone else because of her celebrity status. So to me, what is going to be really super interesting to look at is how this impacts playing the game the second time. Especially, she's very, very tight with David Janae. How do you pronounce his name? Janae?
I say Janet, but I don't think anyone really knows. I think it's one of life's mysteries. We all just accept it.
Golden God. The Golden God.
You pronounce it what feels right to you.
Okay. David Janae. Since one day I'm going to be Aimee Chan, I should get used to saying it, shouldn't I?
His wife may have an issue with that, but...
Well, sometimes people have to get hurt.
Just because soccer has a goalie doesn't mean you can't score.
That's right. She has a very, very tight relationship with him. And so I think the fact that the three of them, Luke, Janine, and David, were so tight in that last season, and they have maintained their relationships since then. As you say, Celebrity Apprentice, they would have seen each other doing the rounds of other different reality TV events in Australia. I think the three of them are going to come in tight, which to me is a very interesting juxtaposition, because anyone who hasn't seen Dondi by now, I'm about to spoil it, so skip. Dondi, obviously David and Parv, very, 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 very close. I think by the nature of these big players coming together, you're going to start to see some shift in dynamics, because I don't think someone like Parvati is necessarily somebody that Janine would play with. I don't think Janine is going to, based on what I've seen from the previous season, I don't think Janine will do well with the very erratic players, the big personalities like your King George, like Tony Vlachos. To give you an example, she's so methodical, she's so planned. Everything she does is very thought out and logical. And when she plays with emotion, she still always has a rationale behind the emotion. It's not, I want to make a move for the sake of making a big move, which is what we do see a lot with Luke, David, George, Tony, sometimes even Parvati. So to give you an example, I thought I'd read you this little paragraph, which is all about the kind of prep that she was doing for the first time she went to play Survivor. So this was not like she 3D printed some puzzles and watched some episodes, which is what I think we've seen with some other super fans who think they're super fans. This is
That's
what
quite
Janine
a lot
did.
of prep. That's prep for anyone but you, Aimee. 3D printing puzzles and the extreme amount of prep. If anyone Australian Survivor is 3D printing puzzles, like they're in the fam. If they've watched anything from Australian Survivor, the bar is very low for Australian Survivor, but that well clears it. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Well, listen to this. Listen to this. Okay, so she says, additional prep included hours of internet research. One American contestant mentioned a puzzle app that she used, and seconds later, I was practicing a slide puzzle to try and get my brain into puzzle mode. I met with the body and mind expert, Paul Taylor, who discussed techniques and coping skills to get through the mentally harder times and the physical challenges. I increased my fitness regimen and really reviewed my diet, practicing a daily 16-hour fast so that my body was good with no food for longer periods of time. I even arrived in Fiji 24 hours early and met with a native Fijian who showed me basic techniques on how to find food, build a fire, and build a shelter. At this point,
be allowed.
Well, you see, this is where tall poppy syndrome. If you weren't sure where tall poppy syndrome kicks in, right there. Just because you're rich enough to fly to Fiji.
I'm so impressed, but I don't think that she should be able to. Like, she would have had to coordinate her own flights to Fiji to get there early. When other people, I just think it's a little bit of an advantage. I'm so impressed, but I don't think she should be able to get there early to prep with the Fijians. But that's just anyway.
Well,
go on.
I mean, that's basically the end of the paragraph. But that's what I mean about she's so deliberate and methodical and thoughtful about things. She doesn't just sort of go on a gut instinct and just impetuously do things. Everything is so tactical that I really think it's going to be very interesting to see how she can find her way in this cast of so many really, really big, volatile players.
Yeah, there's a lot here. I mean, Janine, she came in, as you said, as such a big name. I remember when they had Pia on the project, RHAP project, and it like spoiled that she would win in a really irritating way. And then the next season they had David before the first episode. It's fine. It's been years.
Yeah, I remember. I'm equally scarred.
Yeah, I remember I was thinking it should have been Janine. Like, had it been Janine, not that Pia isn't famous in her own right, and she was also a champion, but like Janine was the name that you would think they would get to like be like, this is champions contenders, but they didn't. They had Pia before the first episode, and then she won. It's crazy that it happened, but it's fine. So
it would actually have been, sorry to interrupt you, but that actually would have been a really good twist, because then we would have all thought Janine won, because it did look like a winner's edit, and then right towards the end, she would have been voted out, and then that would have been a big blindside for the audience. So that actually would have been better all around.
Yeah, I mean, we might have thought nothing, because we would have thought it's appropriate that Janine did the interview. Like, that who is, like, if I had to get sight unseen, just someone to do the interview, not based on how they do in the show, absurd reason to book someone before the show, but based on the name, I think I'd go with Janine. And she is also going to do so on the show, just separately. But anyway, Aimee, it's been 6 years. I'm over it. I'm done. But yeah, I think with Janine, it's interesting because Survivor does kind of reduce you to like a player. Like, you come in these different levels of society and you create your own society. And Janine is in the beginning at the bottom against this like sporty seven, I think it was called, of athletes in one of many Australian Survivor seasons that had athlete alliances that Abby actually was in. And I think Janine like screwed up a challenge and they were going to vote out Janine. Like, she's the one who's getting votes at the vote where that is flipped, and they pull over Abby, they pull over Ross. And I think Janine and Abby's budding, eventually very close relationship, Abby, who's obviously a champion in her own right as well, that helps to kind of pull that across. And that's part of that whole, which I've spoken about many times with, I think with podcasts that have come out and will come out with Luke and David. But yeah, Luke and David and Pia and Janine pulling over Ross and Abby to create that group. And I think Janine finds the contenders idol. She won't give it to David, which is what also triggers David creating the fake idol for Sean. So there's a lot of things here, a lot of domino effects that are going to come into play with the Daves and the Lukes and the Janines in this pre-swap. And now they're all back together again. And then, yeah, when you get to the swap, I think the thing is for me is it's not just Janine's name, because that's kind of been reduced in the fact that it's Survivor. Like, she still is, of course, Janine Allis. But I think her being the godmother is a credit to her gameplay. It's not just that she's Janine. I mean, you know, it's hard to pass any of this out. But obviously the fact that she's Janine means she probably acts a certain way. But I don't think it's just name. I think that Island Janine was the godmother. She came into a swap where the champions did have power, and they had also built power through the pre-swap, and her group found power. But in the swap, when they're swapped into majority, Janine's the godmother. She's running things, and we loved that. We loved having a godmother and not one of many godfathers. We loved that she was the mob boss as a woman and as an older woman. And we found it so cool, and I still find it cool to this day, that she just was, yeah, she was in control. And she did have this rivalry with Harry where he would play idols and save himself, and she would split around him. And it was the godmother versus the cockroach. And I definitely think that some of the Tonys and certainly like the Georges could definitely be like that irritant to Janine in a very similar way. I definitely see that. But I think her being the godmother, like, she built herself to this really high level through the game, certainly through that post-swap, then through a merge where they blindside David, which we'll have to talk about in terms of that relationship. The champions are going to beat the contenders, take out like the Johns and your Daisies, and then it's going to crumble, which we can talk about, when she herself will be taken out of the game by someone like Luke. But yeah, I think that she built all of that. Like, it's kind of a similar story to her life story in ways. Like, she started low, she built, and then she just started dominating. Now, there has been no life blindside, and I hope there never is. But certainly that trajectory to like the mid-merge is like a similar trajectory as she like built up her entire life to this level of success.
Oh, yeah. I think particularly what was really striking to me is in that second episode after the merge where they don't let them after the challenge go back to camp. They're all around the fires, and they've all agreed who they're going to vote for, which I think was David at that time. And then she single-handedly by herself flips the whole tribe to send Sean to jury villa. That was really that's kind of fascinating to me. What concerns me is I think she's very good at, as you say, at politicking. Like, she's very good at the social side. She is somebody that the younger women look up to. She can act very one-on-one and at the same level as anybody, blokey bloke or, working class bloke or highly intellectual bloke. She can kind of mix it with anybody. The thing that really struck me was there's that moment, as you say, where she, at one point, the first swap, she decides that she thinks that Dave and Luke are antagonists, and she goes and tells Sean about the fake idol, which is my real bone to pick with her, because she robbed us of that great moment of Sean trying to play a fake idol. We never got that because she told him. But she then never kind of went down that path. They ended up very quickly reverting back to, actually, we need to save them because they're former champions, and let's throw a challenge in order to save Luke and Dave on the other tribe. What that kind of highlighted to me was that I feel that in this, we're not quite at the stage where we're playing New Era in Australia, but we are playing a faster game now than even what we were playing Champions v Contenders 2. So what I think Janine might potentially struggle with is this ability to actually break away from stick with the numbers, stick with your tribe, stay loyal to your core, because that's what she was really strong at. And I think that's how she built all that trust in her previous season. But I think to do well in this next iteration, especially given the fact that this is an all-star cast, she's going to need to flip that on its head. She's going to need to be backstabbing, flipping, much more mobile in her alliances. I think this staying true to one strong alliance all the way to the end and then pick each other off, I don't know that you can play like that anymore.
I do agree with you, especially in a season like this that I think is going to be, definitely very fast, but as you're saying, pretty flexible. We talked about this with other players who've had an extreme amount of like pure success. Like, do you know what it's like to be blindsided? Do you know what it's like to play from the bottom? Like, having that varied experience, I do think will be a good thing. Janine's experience on the bottom is at the very beginning and pulling that back to just dominate through the game. And even then when things are being cut up, it's on her terms. Like, she blindsides David. She's able to kind of adapt in that way, but she's always in the driver's seat. And then when she loses the power later on, which we can talk about, I remember she and was it Simon won the Spy Award and took Pia and Daisy, because everyone was in pairs in the peg challenge, which was like my favorite challenge. And they had to take another pair, and they took Pia, and Pia was her best friend. And I remember criticizing that because, like, you don't do that. And they actually left behind a group that would end up coming together. And Abby, who's going to flip because Pia and Janine are, like, kind of out in front of their alliance, with Luke and Harry and Baden, who are going to control this, like, second half of the merge. And yeah, at the point where she loses power there to them, her actual vote out will be prolonged by Exile Island and Simon going twice, but she cannot get that back. Like, at that point, she's out. She's out at 6. So day 44. I do think, I think that it's interesting to think not just how she goes when she doesn't have success, but how she goes when maybe things are so incredibly agile. Because I do think her skills are in incredibly broad control. And just full control. And the way that she was in the swap, like against Harry, where it's this game of cat and mouse, like she's the cat, but I'm interested to see her as like the mouse. And a good example might be like a Matt Rogers. You think about Matt Rogers, who as the Godfather had so much control, but I actually love seeing him in All Stars. He came back on the bottom, and I was much more intrigued seeing him fight from the bottom. I loved Janine as a godmother. I want to be a godmother one day. Like, how cool. Like, she was just like this presence. It's unbelievable. But I want to be able to see her kind of like she was at the very beginning of the Champions Tribe, you know, pair it back and really win from the bottom. Can she do that? I'm not sure. I think it will be necessary in this season because I can't imagine someone just controls it beginning to end.
No, and I don't know if anybody you've talked to about this season yet has brought this up, but to my mind, I feel there's a lot of hype around this season as being this is the ultimate pinnacle of All-Star seasons because it is global. And so I think the players who've agreed to come and play are not coming here to play a safe game. Everybody is here to bring their A game, make entertaining TV, make lots of moves, make lots of big moments to prove why this is such an exciting season. So I think if Janine doesn't step up to meet that, I think very quickly she will be voted out. I think that there are potential people that she can play with. Like, I could see that she could do very well with, say, Shani, Kirby, Sari, potentially Rob Bentley. I could see that kind of gameplay working well with her gameplay and having these alliances. But I think even then the alliances would need to be much more strategically presented. I think they would need to be quiet alliances, a bit similar to what we just watched in 48, where we, in case anyone hasn't finished 48 yet, where we saw two players go very deep towards the end because they had an alliance that nobody else knew about that was strong between them, but it was hidden from everybody else. I think that that's kind of how you have to play it. I don't think that you can play the way she played the first time, which is very, very old school Survivor. You know, this is the alliance. This is who I'm aligned with. One of the things that really struck me from the memoir, and also when I re-listened to your deep dive, was how when she talks about other players not in her alliance, she doesn't really have anything to say about them because she never really got to know them. So at one point in the memoir, she actually does like a list of all the people post-merge, all the different characters and the attributes she gives to each of them. And it's really, really stark. She's got heaps of things to say about people, like you say, like Abby, like Pia, Harry, because she played closely with Harry, but closely opposite Harry. But she doesn't have a lot of things to say about other people that she didn't form relationships with because she never really invested time in them. Like, her strength was in building her core relationships. And I would say what's going to really show up this season will be the weakness in not having plan B, C, D, E, F, G with every other player on the island. Because I think it is going to be at that kind of a level. I think we're going to see insane gameplay because people are coming back with something to prove. They're coming back to say, this is why this is the pinnacle of all seasons.
Yeah, I do think, like, in the swap, she did better with that. Like, I think that she created some relationships with the contenders. I think mostly probably for them out of fear. Like, they were on the bottom. They didn't have the numbers. And they would come across, like, Casey as an example, who ended up splitting on her own vote out. And, like, Harry plays the idol and Casey goes home. So I think she was better there, at least with Casey, and, like, bringing in some relationships. Well, I think Matt also turned on Harry there and then kind of went back, to kind of have those numbers. And I kind of remember that she would, like, I don't know why I credit Janine with this, and maybe it wasn't Janine, but I kind of remember that she would maybe, like, would throw a vote, their alliance would throw a vote here and there to, like, maybe split. It's like if the other side happened to come with you again, like, out of fear and desperation, like, you have some numbers on a split. And if not, like, those were inconsequential votes. I don't know why. Like, looking at the voting chart now, and I'm like, it doesn't really seem that evident to me. Like, maybe a little bit in, like, the John vote where Luke votes for Harry, but I don't know why that's kind of in my mind, but I remember thinking that at the time. But yeah, I do agree with you that generally she's good. That's what godfathers and this one godmother did, right? Like you have a group. You don't know that like the godfathers and godmothers aren't like known for outreach. And that I think that like the Davies and the Contenders and the Johns, like they were there to be the enemy. You know, like a common enemy that you like are ruling over in your group that like has something to fight against. And that definitely is the Janine game. But I look at these relationships and I think there's so many women here, and it's a majority of women on this cast, but there are women who are like known for working with women. I'd love to see some of these like iconic women from women's alliances, like the Cerise and the Janines. Like, give me that. And I know you say you don't think that she would work so well with Parvati, and I do think on a personality level, I do see that less. They definitely have clearly relationships in common with like a Dave. But yeah, I do think that I'd love to see something like that. I could see like a Kirby, like the next like female athlete like Abby was, even like a Cass. I could see a lot of these relationships, but then yeah, you see like the kind of very strategic guys like the Georges that are just like thorns in her side. And I think that's not her vibe. But yeah, I'm looking at that group and I'm thinking Suri. Like she's the oldest person on this season at 59, and then I think it's Suri. Yeah, team up. Like that'd be great. Let's do that.
I'd love that. What I'd be interested to see actually, it's interesting about Pav because I think Suri and Janine I could see together because I think Suri is very good at letting you think you're in charge. She's very good at manipulating you in a way so that you think you are running circles around her and she's just coming along for the ride when actually she is controlling everything. What we never saw in the previous season really was a situation where you saw Janine trying to compete with another big personality, particularly a strong woman who maybe wants to run the alliance in a different direction. I would love to see what it would be like if she and Pav could come together because Pav also is very opinionated, very strong, very clear about the things that she wants to do. It'd be fascinating to see if they came together, how the pair of them would work together, whether they would be able to collaborate or not, because certainly with Janine, we've never seen her play in a situation where she wasn't the dominant female leader.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with this whole cast is that there's no one who's really going to fall into line as much. I think maybe, like to be fair, but not like the Pavs and the Cerise, but like maybe there's some options, like maybe Sarah loves to play her own game. Maybe Lisa, who did actually have that role until she kind of won out strategically. I'm trying to think about who are the people that Janine can lead, because if she's going to play a similar game, as you're saying, she needs people to lead. And especially when she had the godmother title, I think, really come about in that post swap. Luke and David were not there. You know, like Luke and David aren't being led, especially not David. We talked about this on the Luke podcast, but Luke was much more led, especially by like David in that season, was happy to take on that role. David's not being led. But the champions that she was there with in the post swap, like Simon, remember Simon? Yes. Simon was definitely happy to be
actually,
like Simon.
When you said Simon, I didn't remember Simon. I thought you were talking about Simon Me, and I thought, wow, I've caught the great Shannon Guss. She made a mistake. But no, I remembered Simon Black.
Simon Black, yes, a Brownlow medalist, one of the best AFL players of all time. But he was very, very happy to be led. And then I think like Pia also was happy to take that on, was happy to be like the silent assassin, the smiling assassin, whatever it was. Like she was happy to take on that role very purposely, very intentionally. I think Abby was very happy to be led, and she was a great player too, but happy to take on that role. And that's why she ended up kind of flipping, because she'd been behind, but was happy to be led. Ross, from my memory, was being chaotic. But you know, she did work with Ross, and Ross was chaotic. So
Ross was chaotic.
And so was Luke.
Ross,
and Dave.
Well,
these are allies.
I think there's what's interesting about them both is I think Ross was chaotic, but in a small way, in the sense he might vote for A, he might vote for B. He wasn't a King George. I'm going to vote for XYZ over here.
Yeah.
Completely out of the blue, makes no sense at all to anybody else. You know, like you kind of Ross was manageable within a spectrum. I think Luke to me reminds me a little bit of like, I think Rob Bentley, Siri, in the sense that they don't need to be the loudest voice in the group. So long as the leader is saying the thing that is most beneficial to them, they're happy to just appear to follow along until it doesn't suit them anymore. So I could see how that can sort of work. That if you can have people like that who are happy enough to go with the flow so long as it suits me. Once it doesn't suit me, I'm not going to go with the flow anymore. But I'm not going to try to pretend to be the leader. If you want to be the leader, you go ahead, be the leader. I don't care. This works for me. and that makes me think about people like Shani and Kirby. I think both of them are obviously very, very strong women, very, real powerhouses. This is why we're seeing them come back. But I think particularly Shani is very happy to just, girlfriend, let's just have a nice time here. Let's just laugh and, until it doesn't suit her. Once it doesn't suit her, that will be a different thing. But particularly if they can somehow get a majority very early, I could actually see a way in which they might let Janine come to the front and be the leader, and sort of drop in suggestions, which is something I think Luke was quite good at doing once they had gone to the merge. Luke was quite good at sort of dropping in suggestions and slowly steering the majority in a direction that suited him without appearing to be a leader as such.
Yeah, I think a lot of the season and a lot of this tribe is going to be, at first, at least initially, really built around the existing relationships. And as we're saying, she's playing with Luke and David, who she's played with before. I think this could go like a couple of different ways. I think her relationship with Luke is like wholly very good. She always loved Luke. And yet, yes, Luke does turn on her, but also like Luke had been turned on in the Dave vote, even though they worked together after that. And then Luke also could have been a good shield for her, but he starts winning immunity challenges. It was kind of eat or be eaten at that point.
Yes.
And I think her relationship with David and Luke in reality is very good. And I think her relationship with Luke on the show will be very good. And Luke's obviously got a million different connections, and so does Dave. And I don't think it works for their storyline for them to be at each other's throats. My concern is that Dave will come for her for the story. Like Dave will come for her for the plot, even though I'm sure he has a really great relationship with Janine. He had a good relationship with her, I'm sure, going on to The Apprentice, and it was still this whole storyline that like she'd voted him out and she wasn't a contestant on The Apprentice. And I just always think back to that, not knowing how important it would be to a show I was covering when I watched it many, many years ago. But yeah, I think that Dave has so many connections, and if I can see him getting revenge on anyone, it's still Janine. Like, he's never gotten Survivor revenge on her. He's never gotten any revenge on her. He won the game, and then she was his advisor on The Apprentice, and they're friends, I'm sure, who have been together many different times. I think they were like at Abby's wedding, and they have this like real relationship, I'm sure. But if I'm thinking like Dave, I'm thinking she got one over on me the last time we were on Survivor together. For the purpose of the viewers who have watched that, I should be getting revenge on her. And I have so many other connections that might be more prominent that I'm going to do that. And I'm a little bit concerned for her that will be bad for someone as powerful as Dave.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. It's interesting because what really struck me when I watched it was, having just come off Dondi, it's like watching two completely different Davids. Like, David in Dondi, he's like, the dad in the family. He's got a son. He's so loyal to his wife, like undying loyalty to the end.
Being Parvati, his fake Dondi wife, not his real wife. Yes, you're hoping he'll leave for you. Yeah,
that's right. He's going to leave her for me. That's right. Exactly. Let's all be clear about that. Yeah, no, his Dondi wife, Parv, and it's just so interesting to me. I mean, he's still plugging her book on social media this week. He just is so different. I had forgotten how much of an antagonist he was until I rewatched this season, and just how much he loved to play into that villain vibe. So it'll be really interesting to see where that character evolves and where he chooses to take it, especially given what the rumor is about where he might be going post this season. I'd just be really curious to see whether he does sort of play into that villain vibe. And to me, if you're going to do something really for the super fans, like the super Golden God fans, the person you got to flip on is Parvati.
No.
Because right up until now, we've been looking at it as these two are so joined at the hip. They're so tight. If you really want to throw something super shocking into the discourse and create a story that will have everybody talking, get rid of Parv.
I can't imagine that.
We would all be online talking about that for hours. So, whereas this thing with Janine is, what year was that? I don't know if I wrote
2019, yeah, it was a long time ago. But yeah, I'm still pretty mad about what the project did. But yeah, I mean, it was a long time. I think with Parvati, Parvati obviously never betrayed David. She just lost a Deal or No Deal. That's how that show works. And it just happened. And she was part of this incredibly powerful moment with him when he's going to win $9 million. Their bond is so, I kind of think, beyond the game and so present, so current, that I just can't imagine someone as wealthy as David who does not need to win this. But I'm sure wants to make great TV. But I still kind of think I think David wants to make great TV more than anything in the world, and I think he actually cares about Pav a little bit more than that, having watched Dondi. So I don't think, I mean, obviously Parvati's not even on the tribe. So I'm actually thinking a little bit earlier, like on the Australia tribe.
Yeah,
I could see him going for like a Tony and for sure all these other big dogs, but not Parvati. But I think on the Australia tribe, after George, who is 100% like a number one target for me, for David, and for most people, and is not connected the way these other people are, I'm like, where is he going to go? Is he going to go for like a Shawnee who voted for him to win? Or is it going to be like Janine? That's the storyline. And I can really see that happening early. And it is definitely a concern for me with Janine. Because if you think back to their relationship, like, yes, they were allies, but as you're saying, it was a complicated relationship. He wanted her to give him the Contenders idol. She doesn't. I think that she was even kind of thinking of, or there was talks about them getting rid of David even pre-swap, and that kind of goes away. Then they swap. As you said, which I'd completely forgotten about, she tells Sean about the idol being fake. That was crazy. Then she comes back and they're like throwing the challenges for Luke and Dave. Like, it was this really close relationship, but not without its many complexities. And then right after the merge is going to blindside Dave. So yeah, that's a little too bumpy for me, for Dave to trust that for very long at all. And now that I'm remembering how complex that was, that it wasn't just really smooth and then a blindside, it was actually really bumpy and close, but bumpy and close until the blindside. I'm like, I really worry for Janine, because I think David is just so powerful and has so many connections that she doesn't have. She's very reliant on, from a preseason perspective, I think, on Dave and Luke, and doesn't have relationships as much as Dave has Parvati. They know Sarah. Luke has Kirby. Parvati then has Suri. Like, all these people are connected, and she's very much like in with her 2019 champions, Luke and Dave. But how much will they be like a benefit to her, not like a hindrance?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming with that. I do feel there are people floating around there that would be easy pickings for him. Like, I could easily see Kirby would be an easy vote off as well. But
yeah, Kirby goes with Luke. Kirby has her own. I mean, who does? Like, Luke's close with everyone on the season.
Yes,
but they have their own relationship as well. So I don't know.
It's actually very hard for me to see where Dave goes in terms of, like, it's going to be very difficult. I can't imagine him voting out. Yeah, Luke or Pav, really, from a personal standpoint, the kind of relationships and how tight you see they are outside the show. Yeah, that is very, very difficult to imagine how that's going to work. And yeah, I don't know that Janine, I think particularly with the international cast, is going to be difficult, because certainly she never had to do that really to any kind of substantial level in her previous season, because she took her champions with her and she just stayed with them from day one till the end. So that thing of then having to try and renegotiate things with the second tribe would be interesting if she can get to that stage.
Yeah,
how she can do that, I'd be curious.
It's a blessing and a curse for Dave that he's so connected. It's like, who are you going to target? Everyone's like a friend.
Yes.
But Janine, with the most like on TV complexities possibly, like, of those relationships, Shawnee for sure. But again, like, Shawnee didn't get one over on him. Like, Janine's the one who got one over on Dave. And I bet Dave does not forget. You're like, this is ages ago. I'm like, you think Dave isn't, like, at least from a TV perspective, at least the persona of Dave is still like, you know, writing her name in the sand and then like crossing it out, you know, like, I think that that's the way that he does it. That's the way he thinks about TV. And it is interesting because it's been such a running theme of these podcasts to think about who has the varied experience. Like, they've all played so much reality TV, but I do think how many versatile types of games have you played? And Janine has more than most. I mean, she was voted out. She was blindsided in that, like, Simon went twice and she lost power. She was on the bottom at the beginning. That is versatile, but like, compared to people who've played many, many games and, you know, different things. But again, Janine is usually more of like the advisor or like the shark capacity. She might be more limited there. But it's hard because every time I do that, I'm like, well, your flaw is that you controlled the whole game. Do you know what to do when you're not in control? Like, you know, that's pretty impressive. So, I mean, how do we feel like Janine's going to do? I feel like I'm now more concerned coming into it about Dave than I even was before this podcast. And I was quite concerned before this podcast.
Well, see, it's interesting to me, given what you're saying, I can understand why she might be a very early boot. So to me, I think she's going to go one way or the other. She will either go very early because she just doesn't have, she doesn't have those exactly like, well, I don't think she can win.
Okay. Because Piers famously was like, I'll either be first boot or I'll win. But you don't think, okay. So give me the two ways you can go.
Yeah, I don't think
neither
she
of them
can
is the
win.
win. Okay.
I think she can go deep, like as deep as she went last time. I don't think she's sitting at the final tribal giving a speech. And I definitely don't think she's winning. I just don't think she has the relationships. I don't personally believe, given that I've read her memoir, given what I've seen of her on the TV over the years and years and years, she's so stable, she's so logical. I just don't see the agility in the gameplay in terms of ducking and swerving and changing and flipping and, upturning the game just for the sake of shaking the game up. I don't see that happening. So to me, she either gets targeted very early by Dave and Luke, and that's it, because they are going on a particular path that she cannot go on. But the thing that it really sticks in my mind when I've been thinking about this late at night, as I tend to do with Survivor, is that I really feel like there's something in this. The three of them are such a powerhouse. If they can, at the very beginning, agree, we're going to unite and we're going to pull in the people that we can pull in, and we're going to dominate all of this, and she's happy to just go along with Luke and Dave doing whatever craziness they're doing, I actually think she can go really, really far, because she's got these two massive shields. They're so interconnected. People are going to be far more concerned about the two of them than they are going to be worrying about what Janine's doing. So I think that's kind of my gut instinct about it. She'll either go first or second episode, or she will make it well past the merge, almost to the end of the jury, but I don't think she'll make it to the end.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is some good shield potential there, but then again, anyone could do that with Luke and Dave. Like Sarah could do that with Luke and Dave. Parth could do that with Luke and Dave. Kobe, they have so many relationships coming into the season. It is interesting that she'll come in as well as Janine, and again, Survivor is that great equalizer. Will the internationals understand that this is Janine, or will she be someone that actually haven't watched play many, many years ago who only played one time? But actually, that's Janine. Do you understand that she's our shark on Shark Tank? But maybe people won't get that. But again, on her season, I think that aura comes out because she is Janine Allis, and like that is only going to manifest in the way that she is. So I think that will come out, and people will discover it, and that will make her a threat. But everyone's a threat.
Well,
so I'm contradicting myself.
Yeah. Well, no, this is part of why I think the three of them, I can really see the three of them sort of forming this wall of gameplay, because I think that Luke and Dave understand TV. And so when they want to make a really strong, dominant alliance that's going to steamroll over everyone, they want a big name up there. So, Sarah Shalecki, she's lovely. I like her. Even Shawnee's pretty big in Australian Survivor universe, but very outside of that, she's not Janine Allis. I think there's something in the imagery of the three of them together that really appeals to me. And I think from their perspective in terms of TV making would really appeal to them. But in terms of what you were saying about people from the internationals not necessarily knowing who she is, surely this is the one season of Australian Survivor where all the players did the pre-watching.
No.
Surely.
No, this is the season where no one knows anyone. That's the main theme of the season, that these are all the non-fans who don't know who anyone is. Now, to be fair, knowing Janine isn't about knowing Survivor. Like, what's so interesting about this season is in the season of like reality TV Goliaths, I said that badly. Janine is like kind of a smaller fish, which is strange to say about Janine ever. She's played Survivor one time. She has been again on TV a lot. But yeah, as a Survivor player, like, no, she's not like a Parvati or a Tony or a Suri or a Shawnee. But as a person, Janine will always be Janine, the person that they should have interviewed on the project before the premiere of 2019. So it's so interesting because there's a lot of reality TV contestants who have made a name for themselves beyond reality TV as like these figures from reality TV. Parvati is certainly one. Dave now is one. And she's done the opposite. It's like she's playing reality TV, coming in from being this huge name otherwise. It's like a complete opposite thing. So yeah, I mean, how much does that translate in terms of like, is she a big fish because she's Janine freaking Ellis? Or is she like a smaller fish because she played once? And Shawnee played 3 times and George is George. You know what I mean? So she's almost like a very, very, in a very different space on the season. She's certainly a Titan. Now I'm using like all of the tribe names. Champion, all of it.
David, Goliath, Titan.
Yeah, all of it. But yeah, she's certainly that. She's certainly, like Janine, like that's a huge name. But less so in Survivor, even though she was huge on that season. But more so just like in who she is as a human being. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. Yeah.
I think the human being bit does come through on the show. So I think even if all you've done is watch that one season, it's really clear. I mean, her whole bloody jury villa is her making Boost juice. So
I want a lychee crush.
Everything is like, as a businesswoman, as a successful blah, blah, blah. When they send the pictures from home, she talks about how many stores they've got around the world. Like, I think they definitely, that is part of the pitch of who she is. So I think by the time they've had their pre-game at Jury Villa, where they're not talking to each other, but they're looking at the way she's being marketed, I think even if you don't know, by the time you've hit the beach, you know what she represents to Australia and what a powerhouse she is. You might not know what she's a powerhouse in, but I think it's very clear that she is a big name.
I do think as well, this being like an older cast is better for her. I think that she kind of does gravitate towards more. I mean, I don't know, maybe that just was the Champions tribe that she was aligned with, but like it was kind of like these damn kids with like the contenders being annoying. And she just happened to be kind of with older people in the Champions tribe. So I don't know if that's just who she, like that was her tribal, that's who she connects with. But I do think that there's that cast there. In saying that, I did come in high on her coming into this podcast. I like that she's part of that big connected group, but I'm also concerned about how those connections could manifest. And just, I'm concerned about the Dave aspect because Dave's Dave. Like, who knows what Dave's going to do at any time. And I could certainly see him like needing to get revenge. But like, it's so hard to need to get revenge as he did in All-Stars, but to be the player who's won in one of the most dominant Australian Survivor Games and Survivor Games ever of all time, and then won $9 million on Dondi. Like, you're past revenge, Dave. Like, your life is great. Okay, it's fine. But I could see him being like, Janine voted me out, and I'm good. And I could definitely see him just for the plot doing that. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I do think if she wins, like, it's a more boring season than we kind of wanted to be for a season of this caliber. Yeah. And I say that with all respect, but again, like, she rules with an iron fist. She's such a baller. It's so cool. But she's either going to play a very different game to what I expected to play, or she's going to like dominate in a way that I can't really see these plays being like led like lambs to a slaughter. No. I mean, definitely Dave won that way, but I feel like Dave has a few different like cards up his sleeve. But Janine, that's all I've really seen in the way that she dominates. So I can't imagine that happening. And if it did, I'd be like, what happened, you guys? Like, you are all doing that? Like, you're allowing that? So I can't imagine it. I don't know that I see her as the winner. I'm not as low on her as I'm wanting to come across, but I have more concerns than I thought I would now that I look at it.
Yeah. I do think you're right about the older cast. I think it is going to play kind of like a new school, slightly new era. I think if you dropped Janine Allis in new era, US Survivor, she would be out straight away. I just don't see that happening at all. I do think having some of these old school players, they're older in actual age, but also older in the mindset of how the game is to be played, and they are adapting, but they haven't necessarily adapted so fast as what we're seeing, for instance, at 48. I think that plays in her favor because I think there are still tenets of the game that work very well for her that she can still hold on to. There is still some sort of element of voting blocks. It's not that kind of every tribal is a fresh tribal and every vote is completely different. I do think that there is going to be alliances and pre-gaming and this sort of thing that's going to come into it that will help her. But I do think to go deep, she's going to really, really have to be more agile than what we saw last time and play faster. It's going to have to be really fast because they're on that island for 5 minutes and then the game is over.
Yeah, it's a credit to her that she controlled like through the whole post swap and then through like the whole first half of the merge. But I do, and like that's a great season. Like that's a season with a lot of really fun stuff happening. But yeah, I do think that this will be even faster. And the one thing I question is adaptability. I don't question, connecting with the right kind of person, as we're saying. So she has like her friends, she has her enemies. She has like her people that she finds, which again is more than you think. It's not necessarily, again, like the big name CEOs, but it also isn't everyone. I think we've kind of identified, like there are some people who are just like her ops, like Harry was the whole time. Yeah, and I think that she kind of finds the people she connects with, and that can be really good, but it's maybe a little bit more one-dimensional. I'm being way too critical on her game. It's not what I intend because I feel like I'm only talking about the negatives. I loved her game. I think she is so cool. I think having the godmother, I think having Janine Allis on the show at all was like, we were lucky. We're lucky again. I'm just like, if any of the flaws are in it being a little limited in like having one type of group, or a little limited in not being as adaptable, or being like more controlling for longer spaces of time, then the season probably doesn't lend to that. And the date factor. Those are my concerns. But I want it to be in the compliment sandwich of, I love Janine. She's incredibly awesome. She does this for the love of the game. It's absurd that we've had her. And I will go tomorrow and I will buy a lychee crush. And I love Janine. So I think I want to like, you know, have it be bookended, literally bookended, because you read the book, with that though, because I love her.
Oh, it's just like, if you have not had time to go back and rewatch that Champions v Contenders 2, I had forgotten what a legendary season that is. There's some massive players, some really big moves that I'd forgotten all about. It's really, really like one of the iconic seasons that cements Australian Survivor as being, to my mind, the most dominant of all the Survivor franchises right now, and the best one. That is one of the iconic seasons, and she is one of the major characters in that. That her whole feud with Harry, you know, the Godmother versus Dirty Harry, all the way from the merge, is just, it's amazing. It was so brilliant. And what I loved about it the most, that I took away from the book and from listening to her podcast and watching the show, is she's so positive. What I love through it all is, even when she gets blindsided, even when she's at the bottom, when she's feeling dirty and cranky and she's been backstabbed, she still does it all with a smile on her face. She's still enjoying it. It never comes from a place of spite or anger or nastiness. It's always just about, that was not the logical decision. That did not benefit me. How can I fix this? You know, she just is such a positive, glowing light. I think there's some real lovely warmth that she brings to a game that can sometimes get a little bitter, get a little personal. She doesn't really engage in any of that, from what I can see. And I think that is actually also something that is really to be celebrated and admired.
Yeah, I mean, I remember all the ads were like the Godmother versus Dirty Harry, and like all the nicknames. Obviously, her ally does go on to win. So I think that's something to pitch. It's like, we might see it as a bit more one-dimensional, but she's loyal, and 100% hit rate on her number one ally winning the game. So I think that's something that you kind of want. If it's like, okay, Janine's going to be the big name who's taken out right before, but is going to be very loyal, like, why wouldn't you align with that? So I think that there's something there as well. But I think about, imagine being Harry and being like, I'm on Australian Survivor and I'm at war with Janine Allis. Like, am I banned from Boost? Was there something, am I misremembering something where, like, there was something with Boost? Like, definitely what was it? They did like a free Boost thing.
I can't remember.
It was like,
just for people named Dirty Harry?
No, it was like, maybe it was for people named like Luke. Oh no, I'm gonna Google this. Can you filibuster while I Google it? Because there was something.
They do quite often do a name day. So they'll just pick a name, and if you're following them on social media and you have that name, you can go into a store and get a free boost. That is quite a common thing. And I do remember there was something about some sort of promotion that happened during Survivor. Yes.
Oh no, you do your thing first, and then I'm so glad that I found it immediately.
No, I was just going to say there was something that happened. You found the thing, so you just tell us.
No, this was it. Okay, this is what I was remembering, and I unfortunately immediately clicked on the Daily Mail article, which is apparently the way we get news about Survivor now. But okay, Janine Allis gets revenge on castaways Abby, Harry, Baden, and Luke with a savage boost juice offer for customers after her elimination. So after she was voted out by those four, she offered customers a juice deal of $5.50, but the catch was, get to it, Daily Mail. Okay, $5.50 boost. Why was it $5.50? Anyway, she came 6. But unless you're Abby, Harry, Baden, or Luke. They were the only people banned. That's what it was. Yeah, so they gave a deal. I don't know why it was $5.50, but just those 4 were banned. But I still don't think that she's going to want revenge on Luke.
Well, that's what I mean. It's all done so tongue-in-cheek, so good-natured, so, good game, well played, always with a smile on her face. That's really lovely to see that, actually.
You got to love someone with, a very successful juice empire, going on Survivor, getting voted out, and being like, all of you get the deal, except the people who voted me out, which is crazy because, you can still buy Boost, but you're paying full price. You know what I mean? It's not like you're banned from Boost. You and your children's children for 3 months. It's like you can come and still get Boost, but at full price. That's absolutely amazing. Speaking of Luke. Did you cover Luke on Big Brother? Am I remembering that correctly?
Oh, yes, we covered Luke on Big Brother. Let me tell
Yeah.
you about Luke on Big Brother.
Please, because that's one of the only things I haven't watched before the season from the players. And like, I know this isn't the Luke podcast, but I'd forgotten it was even Big Brother VIP. I'd fully forgotten that like Omarosa and Caitlyn Jenner and Meghan Markle's brother were on that season, and that's something that we put on television.
Yes,
What was
yes.
2021?
Yes, yes. So I covered this, I believe it was for RHAP with the great Sarah Carradine. I had actually forgotten that it was VIP until you said that too.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you also forgot, because I did the whole Luke podcast, forgot that it was VIP. Then Eden on the Sarah podcast was like, wasn't that a celebrity version? And I was like, I don't know. And then I felt so bad I hadn't done it on the Luke podcast. After this, I'm actually going to record an intro for the Luke podcast, which is coming out soon, and I'm going to include it. But you give me the information now. I'm so glad you also forgot, though, that it was VIP, because then I, who didn't even watch it, how could I have remembered? That's
yeah, no, I forgot it was VIP because they did not play like an all-star season. Like the other players essentially just were very passive housemates, is my memory of it. There was a lot about Meghan Markle's brother talking about he was going to write her a letter, something. Again, nothing to do with gameplay. So Luke came storming home, won the season. But my resounding memory from that, and I know this is Sarah's memory too, because she often brings it up if we have a chat, is that in our deep dive, I had texted Luke and said, right, so we're going to do this deep dive. I've got these questions prepared. He's like, great. I'm just really tight on time. So when I start doing like this wind up with you, that means we need to stop. And I'm like, great, all right. So we start the Zoom. There's Sarah, there's me, there's Luke. I ask one question, and he doesn't stop talking for like 2 hours. Talk. I didn't need to ask him anything else. He just verbal diarrhea, everything I could possibly have wanted to know about the gameplay and the strategy and why he did this and why he did that. He just wanted to share everything. He was so generous with his time. And at one point, he started doing this, the wind up to me. So I was waiting for him to stop and take breath so I could interrupt and wrap it up. But he still wouldn't stop talking. Talking. So there's an intense love of the game there for him and the strategy, and every decision with him, although it looks haphazard and it looks chaotic, is all so deliberate. And it's all done for the fans. His love for the fan community and the viewers and what the viewers are getting out of him being on the TV is just enormous. So I don't think you need to go rewatch Big Brother VIP Australia. Yeah,
I'm really upset about it, though. Should I watch that Gordon Ramsay show? Because I'm trying. Like, I mean, if you're not a contestant, I feel like at that point, because I'm not going to watch Sarah on the Face. I'm not going to watch Big Brother VIP. I wasn't going to watch Big Brother VIP before I remembered or was told by Wikipedia that it was like the Caitlyn Jenner, Meghan Markle's brother, Omarosa season. Insane. Absolutely insane. So I'm definitely not doing it now. But as the person who covered the season, now that we're like kind of, going into the Luke of it all, but should I be lower on the fact that Luke won that season, considering now I'm remembering, like, it was Big Brother VIP. Dane Beams was on it. What was happening there? But, like, should I be lower on it because it was with that cast? Because, like, in the Luke podcast, I'm very high on Luke's chances. I still am. But my whole thing is, like, Luke's gotten better and better, and he won Big Brother. But I said that, and I had forgotten, to be fair, that it was the season where they got Caitlyn Jenner during COVID, like, all the like, non-celebrities or, like, whatever kind of celebrities were, like, happy to come here and do this. Should I be lower on his win because it was with Omarosa?
No, because, I mean, if you think about it, at that time, Luke was Australian celebrity for Australian Survivor. And I think then if you didn't watch Survivor, you knew about him because he'd won the 500. Well, people had, what's that thing called where you give?
GoFundMe. Yeah.
GoFundMe. Yeah, the money, right? So he was known in the media for that, but he wasn't really a celebrity outside of Survivordom. So to go into a place like that with people who are bona fide global seasoned, celebrities, like a Caitlyn Jenner, like an Omarosa,
and Meghan Markle's brother.
Yeah, gosh, he was nasty. To make these kind of connections and hold your own and then actually still win the game. Maybe they're not playing strategically, but he can still make these relationships in any kind of a context. He doesn't he doesn't present as, at that time, I'm just a miner from Western Australia. I'm a dad with some kids. What do I know about being the face of being trans and an Olympic star and a former Kardashian? Like, he can hold his own in any kind of a situation. So I think that warmth of personality, that came across when he never stopped talking in our deep dive and comes across, in a Big Brother house with these random Americans actually still really applies. And I think will do well for him, because it wouldn't matter if you had Australia versus World plus Luke Toki. He would still make the relationships, form the bonds. People would still fall in love with him, because I just think it speaks to who he is as a person and how intoxicating he is, how charming, how charismatic.
I remember the first podcast I did with Luke was in my first season, covering Lisa's season, the penultimate episode of Lisa's season, which I think is crazy because he watched that season. And halfway through, he was like, I need to go. And I was like, but we haven't done the podcast. We haven't done the Chizzy. It was my first season. I was like, and I definitely wasn't good at being adaptable. And I don't know that I've become good at being adaptable. Maybe I'm like Janine, without all of the coolness and the awesomeness that Janine is. But he was like, I got to go to, and in the juice empire, all I want is my free Boost Juice. No, they would lose a lot of money if they did that, because I'm giving a lot of money to Boost Juice currently. But yeah, so he had to leave, and he was like, I have to go to work. And then I was like, we haven't finished the podcast. And then he did it in the car. That was the whole section.
Actually, I do remember that.
Yeah, I think we edited around it pretty well. But at the time, I was like, I can't adapt and think on the fly. I've been podcasting for 3 months, okay? And then like some of those deep dives, I remember Dave from that season was like at the beach. He like found a little place, and there were like birds. Anyway, that was 2018. And now, Luke and Dave and Janine are back. And thank you for all your insights. I mean, you read Janine's book, you rewatched the season, you listened to her deep dive, you covered Luke on Big Brother. You've been just like a wealth of knowledge, Aimee. Thank you so much.
No. It was actually really fun to go back and do all of that. I'd sort of forgotten.
When did you find the time?
Well, you'll find out in 10 years, when you're the same age as me, that something about being awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, you suddenly find all this time to do things because your body does not want to sleep.
Well,
I don't want to be awake at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's a Perry thing.
That's absurd that you watched the whole season. Well, did the deep dive hold up? I can't believe I had Janine on a deep dive. That's incredible that she did that. I'm so impressed with myself, actually, when that happened.
Yeah, and she was very generous on the deep dive. To be fair, everything that she said to you on the deep dive was pretty similar to what she said in the memoir. It's not like she sort of held things back or, she was very, very generous with everything she said to you on the deep dive, and it seems to be replicated where I've listened to her in other podcasts and other things I've read, pretty similar sort of thing. So, yeah, no, I think she really enjoyed talking about her experience on there, and I think it was quite life-changing and definitive for her. So I think whatever happens, however deep she goes or doesn't go, I think she will be a joy to watch. She'll be fun, and I think she will get a positive experience, which will be positive for us.
Yeah, and also be careful voting her out, though. You're going to be paying full price for your Boost Juices on that one day, okay, that everyone else isn't. So, and you know who'll be a Boost Juice and having not voted Janine out and getting cheaper Boost Juice? Me. I can't wait for that day. Like, I'm going to be, I'll get the screeners early, so I'll know to be there. I'll have 3 days notice or whatever to be like, she's going to Boost Juice. And this person's not getting it, Dave. Yeah, be careful what you wish for, because you're not getting $5.50 boost. But Aimee, thank you so much. This was great. Plug things for the people. Tell them where to find all of your many things to read and review, etc.
Sure. So if you want to get all my Survivor takes, which mainly go quiet in between seasons, but will be very, very hot and busy during the next season, you can follow me on Twitter at Survivor Tragic. Everywhere else, I'm on Aimee Chan Author, because I am also an author. I write mainly children's books. My latest children's books is this one called The One, which you can buy at your local bookstore. And I am just about to release my first ever adult novel. This one, to be really clear, is not for children. And now I'm going to do a bit of a Stephen Fishback, where he used his RHAP swag to try to get people to do pre-orders. And I believe he sold like over 200 pre-orders of his new novel, which doesn't even have a cover, but my book has a cover. It's in print. It is arriving in Australia any day, and then you will actually be able to buy it at the bookshop. But I reckon Stephen's right. There is something in the pre-orders. So if you're at all interested in reading about a funny little novel about online dating in the 2020s, it's called Sexed and the Small City. You can buy it at your local bookstore. Please go and support it and put in a pre-order and let the bookstores know so that they will buy it.
Well, I think that if anyone thinks that Sex in the Small City is for kids, like that's probably on them. And at that point, but I think let's do that. Let's all go get our boost juices and then pre-order the book, spend all our money on all the things associated with Survivor. But also everyone, to thank Aimee for the fact that she did an insane amount of research for this podcast. Thank you so much. This was so good. We got a lot of the Janine stuff. We also got some Luke stuff on this. This was great. Yeah, and the Australian Survivor World Tour continues on in some order. And we have a premiere date, which is the first time that they've actually done since that's true, August 17th. So this is going to finish up like a week before the premiere, this series. And then we're going to maybe do maybe something else. Hopefully it's a look, something like that. And then the season will start. And that's going to be really, really fun. But thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Aimee, for your absurd amount of research. Thank you to our team behind the scenes. And I will see you next time. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.